Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Tech Talk we call How to Use Identity Association Technology for Regulatory Compliance. I'm your host, Tony Napolillo with Spirion. So that's an intriguing title, and it may create even more questions. But to summarize what we'll be discussing today, as you know, privacy regulations around the world are growing at a fast clip. This can make compliance difficult, confusing, even overwhelming for any size organization. So what's needed is the right combination of expertise and resources to remain compliant. Without both, it can be near impossible to accurately identify and collate all personally identifiable information for a data subject across an expansive organization. Now, to help us navigate this crossroads of human know-how and technology is Spirion's head of product, Ryan Tully. Hello, Ryan.
Hey, Tony. Thank you for having me today.
We're happy to have you here. And for the next 15 minutes or so, he will guide us through the topics and technology to best address these issues. And you get to ask your own questions to our expert. Just use this Q&A button at the top of the feature to submit your questions, and we'll go through them either through the presentation or at the end. And with that, take it away, Ryan.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tony. I'll add one quick comment on the Q&A, and then we'll get there. I do like to try to weigh in on these organically, as in, if there's a question that you have as I'm talking about a thing, please feel free to drop it in there. Add a little bit of context in case I can't get to it immediately, and I will try to answer it in the form of the presentation rather than waiting to the end if possible. If not, again, we'll save some time at the end just to make sure that we cover all the questions, but I'll try to get through as many as we can up to that. So let's talk about identity association technology here for regulatory compliance. Before I can even get into the identity association technology and how it helps you, I think it's important that we take just a moment or two to talk about the problem in the first place. So really, what's our problem? I can put all of this on a nice fancy slide, but in reality, I'm just going to tell you where we're at. Is everybody here is well aware of, I'm sure, of the European Union's Global Data Protection Regulation Act several years ago, the EU GDPR, or just GDPR is an easy way to go about it. It wasn't the first privacy regulation, but it was probably the grandfather of all the modern ones that we have today, where it went through and, amongst other things, provided a set of rights to people in terms of identification of their own personal information, the personally identifiable information, and what organizations can and can't do with it, and what their rights are in terms of the collection of that information, the modification, the erasure of that information, etc. That in and of itself has expanded out across multiple different countries that are out there. You can start talking about what you're dealing with PAPETA or API and all these other lovely acronyms that you can have in multiple different countries. And even domestically within the United States becomes a little bit challenging because you start taking a look at the different privacy regulations we have here. The California Consumer Protection Act, which has since evolved into the CPRA. You have Colorado with CPA, you have Virginia with the VCDPA. You have all sorts of different acronyms that are coming in from all sorts of different states with a variety of different privacy regulations that are showing up. And consistent across them is a dictation of what businesses can and can't do, and which businesses are and are not subject to this, but what they can and can't do with the private information and the personally identifiable information of residents of these individual states where these regulations are covering and regulating, right? So overall, one of these big challenges people run into is getting that information out of the ecosystem of an organization. Right, so to frame out a challenge, and we'll get a little bit more into this in a moment. Say I go ahead and say I'm a resident of California. I'm not, but say that I was. And I was in California, and I said, one of the things I want is a full copy of everything that you've ever collected about me that you have to give me when I ask for it. And now you have a timer that starts that says you have to provide this type of information. As an organization, what do? Right? How do you know where to collect all that information? What does your workflow look like in terms of engaging? Is it primarily manual? Is it primarily automated? And are you really even looking in the right spots? So I'll give a quick example of data proliferation, because a lot of people think, for one brief moment, I know where it all is, right? I know where all the PII is. I go ahead and I manage this. I have an IS team. I have an IT team, right? We go through and we manage this, but let's look at a real world-ish scenario of data proliferation. So we're going to use the example of a person by the name of Nancy. Nancy goes ahead and applies and secures a job at, I don't know, WonderCo Incorporated. fills out all the new hire package. She has a new employee form. She does the I-9, passport, driver's license, benefits, all sorts of stuff. Takes a picture of the forms, the documents, and emails all that to the recruiter. Well, that means it all ends up over in HR. Fred over in HR receives it, saves a copy to his file store for safekeeping, puts the information into a spreadsheet for new hires, and then goes ahead and forwards the email with all the attachments in the spreadsheet to the hiring manager and his boss. He CCs himself, so he saves a copy in his email. And the hiring manager sends to admin, who also saves to their local location. And then that's all backed up in OneDrive, for instance, or SharePoint, or so really in a matter of minutes, more than a dozen copies of Nancy's private information, including that of her family, has found its way throughout the enterprise in a form of propagation. Now, granted, there's a lot of parts in this story of, hey, someone saved it locally, someone did this, someone did that, and sure, there's a lot of things in play that maybe are breaking the rules, but breaking the rules or not within terms of a company's IT or IS posture doesn't really matter because people are doing it anyways. Those rules are getting broken, and without regulations in place or without compliance measures in place to prevent that, this proliferation is going to occur. And even without people breaking the rules, like they're doing the normal stuff. Fill out this work form, fill out this worksheet, fill out this document, put it in the HR location. That's still a proliferation of data that can go pretty quickly. And this is for an employee, mind you. Employees have rights too, not just subjects out there, and then many of these different regulations that are in play. But even individuals who data is being collected on will go ahead and have these types of challenges. So what organizations have done traditionally for the GDPR side of the house, and what they have done traditionally for the CCPA and similar acts within the United States, is they go ahead and they create a portal for this, right? They work with either a third-party organization or they make their own to say, here is my intake form that effectively says, I am going ahead and I am giving you the ability to request your information. Now, there's a variety of companies out there that do these types of pieces, right? That say, I'll give you the ability to do attestations or do validations or other ways of confirming and ensuring that the person who's asking for this information is in fact the person who is asking for this information. And they'll give you ways to communicate, share information, etc. Lots of options available for you on that one. We don't help with that. That is all you, right, on the front end to make sure that it's delivered in a way your customers care about. However, the challenge is the back end. How do you go ahead, once a request has come in, how do you engage with this? Now, I've seen this in the past in a lot of different ways. I come from the privacy space. And generally what organizations would end up doing is they would fire off a ticket somewhere, like a ServiceNow or a Jira or a Zendesk, and say, okay, person whose job is part of the privacy team, or maybe you're an IT or an analyst, something like that, go find information in all the locations that we know of, right, for that we keep info, and find the information we know about this person. For instance, they have their name, their email. They're given a proof of identity, which may or may not contain like a driver's license number or a passport number, or it may not contain a lot of things in general, right? You may not have a lot of information for what you're looking for. So in reality, you want to be in a spot where you not only find what has been asked for, but you potentially find what hasn't been asked for. And that's where the identity association technology comes into play here. So we have something called Sensitive Data Finder, and I'm going to take you through this tool in just a moment here. But we have something called Sensitive Data Finder, which the entire goal of this part of our product is to give you the back end of that flow. Your front end, you have the portal, you have a request process, you have a way to manage, you can communicate your SLAs, you can do all sorts of great stuff. On the back end, you now need to go and look inside all of your data for what information is collected about this person, and then be prepared to validate that information is correct or not correct, and then present it back to that person as much as you need to. And I want to show you a little bit about how we do this. This is my high-level flow. It's a workflow, so this way you don't have to listen to me just say this the entire time and sit and hope that I'm going ahead and telling you the right stuff. I'm also want to make sure that you guys are all able to see a rough idea of what this flow looks like as I bring you into different pieces. But this idea up at the top is this is your portal, right? This is your form that you engage with when you start working with one of your subjects, one of your clients, or some such like that. It goes ahead and their subject request comes into a subject request intake form. I'll show you that and what that looks like. It goes through our identity association engine, which is tied to our Spirion sensitive data platform, which I'll talk about that in a moment too. Goes through an approval process, and then you can go and generate an automated response that feeds back into that portal to really help you out with what those customers are looking for, what those clients, those subjects are looking for. So what I want to actually do is I want to show you what this looks like in action. and what it is that we have available within the engagement. So I'm bringing you here into sensitive data platform, into SDP. I'm going to use that acronym a few times here. I'm going to bring you into a feature set for SD Finder, sensitive data finder. Sensitive data platform, I don't want to get too much into the weeds on that one today. We've had plenty of tech talks on that in the past. We can certainly direct you to another tech talk in the future if you'd be interested. But sensitive data platform is our SaaS offering that we have that helps you go through and identify sensitive information in your repositories wherever that sensitive information lives. Whatever type of sensitive information you have, we're going to hunt it down and we're going to go ahead and find it. The ability for us to hunt down and find that data across your different repositories is what powers Sensitive Data Finder and Sensitive Data Finder's identity association engine. As in, once we have found everything that exists within an organization, we can then go ahead and we can come back and say, I have a subject request that's come in for an individual. I know this about the individual. Let me make some assumptions, some guesses. You'll see this in action. Some guesses about what else is associated with this individual based on what I've already analyzed within your environment. So this is me going ahead and taking a look at our dashboard. And within our dashboard, I can get some visibility immediately. And you can see I haven't done a whole bunch in this environment. But you can get some visibility immediately in terms of requests that have come in, which requests are maybe at risk because they're violating the SLA, how many requests you've completed over time, what our time to complete the subject requests are. The ones we've done, we do pretty quick. And what the status is for all the ones that are open. And you can even break this up by regulation. So we have GDPR and CCPA listed in here. You can add more regulations if you want to add more regulations in terms of where you engage. We can actually, I'll show you in a few minutes on what that would look like to bring a new regulation into the flow and get an idea on what things look like over time, what your statuses are, individual ones, what we're pending on, what we're not pending on, etc. So subject requests, they can come into the system and they can have multiple different subject requests. They can be something that's more informative, as in, go ahead and tell me, oh, excuse me, one second, let me bring that back. Go ahead and tell me what it is that you have for me in terms of my personal information, what you've actually collected, what you're showing, et cetera, et cetera. It could be something simple like that, or it could be a request for erasure, for instance. Hey, by the way, I want you to get rid of everything that you have in the environment that's related to me. So a variety of different requests that you can have. Again, I'll take you through what that looks like in a second. But when we go and when we add a subject request, we can either do this manually. I'll give you a brief idea of what manual looks like. Or we can do this automatically. We do have an API that if you have a front-facing portal that can go and make outgoing API calls, I can think of a few vendors on the market that do that right now. But if you have a build-it-yourself, do-it-yourself type portal, I'm sure you can build something like that easily. But you can make an API call that we'll go through and we'll hit our platform and we'll automatically generate these subject requests for you. So you can get this dumped automatically into your workflow to ensure that this is being done correctly. But I can go through and I can go say, hey, listen, I'm going to go and build a subject request. I'm going to focus on, I don't know, let's say someone I've already done. It is Joanne and Talbot, and regulation type, I don't know, we're going to go with GDPR, data request. This is informative. We'll go ahead and say it's a comprehensive report. And I'm going to say that Joanne gave me 3 pieces of information, right? This is GDPR, so let's say that we got your Nino. We're going to go ahead and we got password, and we got an email address. This is probably not going to hit anything, so I'm randomly picking some things here. However, you know, to give you an idea, this is the type of information that you could go ahead and you could put in here. Is whatever. I'm putting some numbers in here to go ahead and support this. jtalbot@gmail.com. And for a password, we're going to go ahead and say Spirion SD Finder. Right? These are all just put in here to be placeholders to show you what happens when we run something like this. But I'll save my request. I can go ahead and I can make others if I want to. And this is what happens when I don't use a properly formatted Nino, by the way, because it tells me it didn't work. So never mind. We'll ignore that one for now. But we go and we save our request, where I actually do think I have a properly formatted one over here. And once these requests are done, you can go through and you can see some of these are going ahead and pending matching, and they're pending review. There are some that are complete. I want to go to the pending matching. What happens in these cases is once a request has gone in, it's entered the system, it's waiting for somebody to either sit back and validate that request, edit that request, delete the request, or actually go and start the identity matching. Again, API-driven can go and take care of this, but if you're doing it manually, this is where we end up. And then identity matching actually starts. It usually takes about 30 seconds to go through and do this, and then it evaluates all of the data that we have. What I want to do is I want to take a look at this one right over here, because it's one I did a little while ago for Joanne. There's the actual Nino number in the right format there. in terms of looking for their information. This goes through and it evaluates and reviews and says, based off of these different files that I have that contain this person's information, this is what I actually think is theirs. And it goes not only based off of information that you provide, like a Nino and an email and a password, those are my three favorite to use. But if you go through and you find additional sensitive information that is probably tied to this person, for instance, I find an address, and I have a lot of contextual information that suggests that it is in fact this person, Joanne, that's associated with that. I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you some information that's what's my confidence level, that I'm actually finding their information in these places. So we're finding name, for instance, that's a pretty straightforward one. We told it the name, it's Joanne Talbot, right, that we're going through and we're engaging with, but it doesn't guarantee it's this person, right? Joanne is a pretty common name, but as we go through and we take a look, we're also comparing them with other information that we're finding in our documents. So this one ends up being something that has her Nino number in there. Therefore, we think that this is in fact her. You can go and you can actually review your file content from here. And once you've reviewed your file content, where you get a preview of the file content, that gives you the ability to say, yeah, this is actually sensitive information, or no, it's not sensitive information. It's not a big deal. And we can filter this down, by the way, on not just what we have found, but also what files we've been taking a look in here. So like there's 5 files that are over here. I can filter them by reviewed, by unreviewed. I can do all sorts of good stuff. I can refuse their subject request because I just don't have the right information, or the information is well located, something I don't have to give them, or it's something I don't have to purge, right? There's a lot of things that I can do. And once I've gone through and reviewed everything, I can actually generate a report. To give you an idea on reports on completed ones I have over here, you can see a previous one that I've done for Joanne. I've done a Justin over here. But you go and you have the ability to generate these reports to give you some outcome, either in CSV, PDF, or even just view it through here, to give you an idea about the types of data that we have found and the types of information that we can go and we can comprehensively provide for these people in the terms of reports that can go and be output. This is all customizable, by the way, in terms of how you want to do your outputs. So for instance, I could go through and I could say, what data types do I even care about in terms of these recognitions for personally identifiable information? We have a whole bunch that we give you out of the box, but you can make your own, right? I happen to be a Boston Red Sox fan, so here's my MLB Fenway data type that I have over here. But you have a lot of other ones that you can engage with and you can do, and you can make your own. And these can be data dictionaries that you look through. They can be regular expressions. They can be a lot of different things, inclusive of some really cool, complex custom ones that you can build on your own, utilizing some of our search API capabilities. That's a completely different tech talk, and if there's any interest in that, let us know. We are happy to talk to you about that. Completely different tech talk, though, on how we get through and we can actually engage with those types of those different data types. I mentioned that we're customizable. There's also your templates that you can go through and you can build together to respond to people on. For instance, erasure, disclosure, that sort of thing. You can take a look at the existing ones. We have variables that you can build. You can build your own templates. You can do whatever you want in these regards and tie them together to your different regulations, your different areas that you want to engage with. And then you can add those regulations. Right over here, you can see I put VCVPA in not just a long time ago. And you can add new regulations, like say, for instance, I care about CPA, and I want to make sure that I have the time in there for, and what can I actually get under CPA? Well, I already have built into the system informative and erasure and these different types of reports. So let me go ahead and deal with that, make new disclosures. I can do all sorts of different things that I want to engage with over there too, to go and to build this out and focus on it. And this lets me go and build these additional templates and generate these new subject requests that we want to put together as much as we can. At the end of it all, again, it feeds back into that view. It gives us the ability to manage and go through all the different statuses that we have in these subject requests. And it gives you this information to feed back in, either through the reports that you get over there. We can go ahead and we can get these results. We can get the request. We can get these reports. You can feed all of the data that you need back into the system, either automatically or manually, depending on what you're looking for. So this gives us the really cool, value add of, by going through and doing the identity association bit, we have completed the second part of this whole data subject access request and subject rights request view, which is intake, validation, right? That all goes up to this wall. We generate through here in our tool to find all of the instances, make sure that we put together a system to notify people what we have, give them copies if that's what's necessary, feed it or delete it if that's what's necessary, feed it back into the system so that you can go ahead and present it to your users, and you now get to build an end-to-end that's utilizing AI and ML in the background to put together this identity association capability to ensure that you're not missing any data from start to finish on what an individual person has, regardless of whether or not they provided you with it. So that being said, that is my quick run through on what it is that we can bring to the table and where that value is. I did see a couple pieces come in from the question side that I tried to answer as we went through. I don't know if there's been anything else, so what I will do is I will turn it over to you, Tony.
Yeah, I do have a couple questions here. How does this fit into an existing DSAR solution like OneTrust, TrustArc, or Osano?
Yeah, and so, well, I think that's something I mentioned. Let me reiterate on that one because I think that's important. Is these other solutions that we have, and I like that we're naming vendors, but these other solutions that we have as sort of the front end, they do a very good job of generating a front-end user experience. They deliver that attestation. They deliver the validation of the identity of the person who's requesting it to set up an automated flow to let somebody come in and say, yeah, I actually am this person, and I want this information. I need to kick off this flow. There's a limited amount of workflowing that you usually see within those tools, as in there's an automated assignment to someone over on the privacy team, and that person can go and get a set of tasks that say, go identify if there's info here, go identify if there's info here, something like that. But as you go through and you start engaging with that type of flow, all it is a workflow that generates tasks for people. There's still missing pieces on the back end. We are still that back end, that secondary part, where your task might be fire off this API, get your collection, do the review, and come right back in here, rather than doing a manual collection or review for information based on what you get as part of your intake form. So it's an overall flow in terms of the manual side where you build that workflow out, but it's also an automated one, right? You utilize our API to keep this all going so you can have a singular, seamless experience, both for your teams that are engaging with this and also for your customers out there.
That's great. So you also said that you can add new regulations other than CPRA or GDPR. How difficult is that?
So I did touch on it briefly. I didn't go too in depth in it, but I do want to comment. It's really not challenging. There's some stuff you're going to want to work with your privacy team, right? If you guys are not of the privacy team yourselves, you want to work with that team to make sure you get the verbiage right. We have some templates for what the communication is going to look like for GDPR, for CCPA, but really that's what we're going to roll out with, right? Is those two major ones that we'll provide to you. At the end of the day, you probably want to cover the other ones out there, right? Like I used PAPETA as an example earlier, but you also probably want to cover your domestic ones, BCDPA, CPA, all those other fun acronyms that are showing up across the board. Put some together with the privacy team, put it together with your legal team. Make sure that it covers everything that you actually need. But once you have that data, right, you have a link to the privacy policy, you have a link to what your actual information looks like, to what your communication is designed to be, what you really care about from an identity point of view, what data points you're looking for. You can easily just put that all into the system and just say, here's my template, here are the variables I care about, here's how I dynamically want it to update, and here's really what I'm looking for, because this matters to me as an organization. For instance, I may even care about not just a privacy regulation or not just one of these style privacy regulations, but I might care about something like PHI, right, or HIPAA. I care about those particular regulations. I can even tie that in together for something like this that looks specifically for PHI information and provides these same types of communications, even if that's not necessarily the core use case on there. Really straightforward, really easy to implement.
Great. And I have one more question. If anyone else has any questions, please put them in the Q&A now. But is this entirely SaaS, or do users need an on-premise component for their data repositories?
That is a good question too. I mentioned this was our SaaS offering that we had as part of Sensitive Data Platform. Sensitive Data Finder is part of Sensitive Data Platform, right? These two work together in concert. Sensitive Data Platform, generally speaking, you're going to care about data anywhere, right, that you have within your ecosystem. Maybe that just means cloud repositories, and that's an easy thing to go ahead and to cover. But it also means more than cloud repositories. I used the example earlier, and that was an intentional example, that somebody might be going through and they might be saving this on their laptop, right? As they start collecting someone's information, they might save it on the laptop, they might save it on a file share somewhere before it ends up in the right cloud repository that it's looking for. So as a result, our tool does have an on-prem component, as in we'll scan your on-prem data repositories, right? We'll scan your endpoints. We'll keep an eye out on your Macs, your Linux boxes that are running RHEL. We can go keep an eye on your Windows machines, etc., to look for this sensitive information so that when you get the real final story from Sensitive Data Finder on where you have all of the information for an individual, you're actually getting it across the entirety of the ecosystem, not just what you're looking for over in your cloud repositories, right? Because as much as those are great, and trust me, I love cloud repositories, I'm a big SharePoint fan for anybody on the line who loves to hear about SharePoint. But your endpoints are a huge risk, right? They're an absolute risk within an organization, and that needs to be covered too. So yeah, you're going to want to take into consideration as an on-prem component. It's a great question, though.
And thank you so much, Ryan. That's all the time we have today. Thank you to everyone who joined us live. This Tech Talk's been recorded. We'll be sending out to all attendees, so look for that in your inbox. And remember to visit Spirion.com to learn how you can better protect what matters most. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.